at KICC and with the opposition present would placate the protesters. However, it angered them even more. The youth now feel that those present are the face of what they are fighting, and even the children of the leaders squandered them. The presence of military guarding the ceremony made matters even worse. We'll be discussing a lot more of that IEBC Act now, but that's a picture on the front page of the Standard newspaper. And Gen Z now say these could be the faces of what's wrong with the country. We'll be discussing that in a lot more detail, but do tell us what you think of what's making headlines on the top pages. The hashtag is New Dawn. We'll be delving a lot deeper into the dailies in the course of this live broadcast. But first, a look at us making headlines this morning. Now, President William Ruto assented to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Bill of 2024 that was backed by the National Dialogue Committee, NADCO, ushering in a new electoral law. The IEBC bill, now an act, contains, among others, an expanded recruitment panel, including the electoral agency's chairman and commissioners. Brian Amwai now reports on the Electoral Act, which now sets in motion the process of selecting IEBC commissioners.
The NADCO report led to a new electoral law signed at KICC, Nairobi.
With respect to the NADCO report,
President William Ruto, alongside political leaders, signed the IEBC Bill of 2024 after it was passed in the National Assembly, initiating the reconstitution of the electoral body.
The IEBC remains a cornerstone of our democracy, responsible for overseeing regular elections at various levels, and on the overall, ensuring that our electoral cycle is managed transparently and administered in an impartial, neutral, efficient, accurate, and accountable manner.
Assent of this bill not only marks a hallmark in our nation's endeavor to reconstitute a new IEBC, but also buttresses the importance of dialogue in our country, because these bills have emanated from a process where we all came together as a country to dialogue, and through dialogue we've been able to surmount most of the challenges that faced our country at the time we came together as NADCO.
The whole world was stunned when we saw an electoral commission that was completely divided. Some saying one thing, others saying one thing. You may be happy that, the other group ruled in my favor. But what example are we showing the world as a country?
President Ruto faced accusations from the opposition of delaying the bill for ulterior motives. Under pressure from both the opposition and the youth demanding IEBC reconstitution, the head of state signed the bill to show good faith.
Today's assent of the IEBC amendment bill therefore marks a significant step in the actualization of one of the recommendations of NADCO and testifies to our country's ability to navigate difficult, complex, and sometimes divisive issues that could undermine our national cohesion, undermine our stability and security if we leave it unattended.
We made it very clear that both you, Mr. President, Mr. Raila Odinga, the Prime Minister, will have to agree on, perhaps most importantly, on who becomes the chair of the new IEBC.
The bill's assent starts the process of forming a new selection panel, expanding from 7 to 9 members, requiring the dissolution of the current panel. The new panel will include nominees from the Parliamentary Service Commission, Political Parties Liaison Committee, Law Society of Kenya, Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, and Interreligious Council of Kenya. The Parliamentary Service Commission will finance the panel, which has 90 days to complete its task, extendable by parliamentary approval. The Act includes transitional provisions for continuity and mandates the Commission to review and improve operations post-election. It requires new commissioners to have accounting expertise. It also eliminates provisions for the Vice Chairperson or members to act as Chairperson and reduces the Secretary's term from 5 to 4 years. It also mandates a comprehensive post-election review report within 18 months to enhance electoral process. The signing of the Act, among others, sets in motion the holding of pending by-elections and process of recalling members of parliament that went against the people's will in the Finance Bill 2024, as intimated by the ODM party and a section of Kenyans. The public has pushed the head of state to reconstitute the commission to allow them to start the process, this being one of the several recommendations in the NADCO report that the opposition want fast-tracked. Brian Amuai, K24, Nairobi.
President William Ruto and ODM party leader Raila Odinga have announced the commencement of a 6-day multi-sectoral forum to foster national dialogue and seek lasting solution to issues affecting Kenyans. The issues, which are expected to propose the way forward for the country, will draw representatives from political parties, religious groups, civil society, employers and the youth. And as Busara Naaman reports, the announcement has elicited criticism from the youth who have decried Raila's involvement.
Following 3 weeks of unrest and deadly nationwide protests against taxation and President William Ruto's leadership, which led to over 39 deaths, President William Ruto has announced a 6-day multi-sectoral dialogue convention which will kick off on Monday.
Was all that.
Speaking after holding consultation with Azimio la Umoja One Kenya leadership led by former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, President Ruto said the forum will deliberate on the way forward out of the crisis Kenya is facing.
We will move ahead with the multi-sectoral forum. And we have agreed that a membership of 150 representatives of various stakeholders, 50 of whom shall be young people of Kenya.
Odinga, on his part, encouraged all stakeholders to approach the talks with an open mind, insisting that the youth cannot be wished away.
We are, as I've said, at a very, very crucial juncture in the history of our country. We require now a wider engagement so that people have an opportunity to vomit all that is there in the chest.
His sentiments were echoed by Azimio co-party leader Kalonzo Musyoka.
If we are not careful, all of us will get thrown out by the Gen Zs because they say we have come of age. You say that we are leaders of tomorrow, we are leaders now. We can't wish them away.
However, co-party leader Martha Karua, who is also NARC Kenya leader, says that the fresh dialogue calls by President William Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga is a trap. Karua, whose remarks came shortly after the announcement, said that any dialogue can only be meaningful if all players have goodwill. A section of the youth online have, however, criticized Raila's involvement, claiming that he is hijacking the youth movement to satisfy his political greed. They have to this end called on Odinga to step aside as they fight for their rights.
Raila sai hawezi kunyamaza, tuatulie ili tuweze kupata yale ambayo tulikuwa tukitaka.
Nisikia pia kuumia roho kama mimi kijana wenzangu naona kama vijana wenzangu wanauliwa kwa ajili ya maandamano.
Masuala ya Gen Z yanafaa kuzingatiwa kwa dharura sana.
Busara Naaman, K24 TV.
The youth now want the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, to have a young commissioner once the commissioners are enlisted. This after President Ruto has entered into law the IEBC Amendment Bill, caving into pressure of threats to march to IEBC offices if the reconstitution wasn't taken into account. And as Harriet Chimiana reports, the reconstitution of IEBC paves the way for the recalling of MPs who have failed their constituents.
The signing of this bill paves way for the establishment of the selection panel for the appointment of IEBC commissioners.
It is a move that has been largely lauded by the Gen Z, with failure to initiate the process of reconstituting the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC within 30 days, as they had demanded, would have resulted to nationwide Occupy IEBC officers' protests.
Orders of Parliament with respect.
They have now issued a new demand that a young person should be enlisted as a commissioner.
Ni ombi kwa wale wahusika wote, serikali na wale viongozi, wale vigogo wote, ya kwamba waweze kuhakikisha ya kwamba angalau mara hii tunapata kijana na tunapozungumzia kijana si tu yule mtu ambaye anaonekana kuwa kama kijana. La, tunaomba kijana kwa umri, fikra na hata jinsi kijana ambaye miaka yake inamruhusu kuwa kijana.
Asilimia kubwa wengi wa Kenya ni vijana. Kwa hivyo kuna kwa sasa tunavyozungumza hakuna ule uaminifu ulioko kati ya vijana hususan na serikali kuu. Kwa hivyo itakuwa step kubwa sana kwa serikali kuu kuhakikisha ya kwamba kuna kijana katika tume hiyo ambaye atakuwa pia anachangia katika decisions ambazo zitafanywa katika tume hiyo.
However, they have casted doubt whether the process will be that of integrity and whether it will be completed in 10 days, further calling for fairness and transparency during vetting.
Vile pia tunaomba sekta zote za jamii ziwezwe kukubaliwa katika bodi hiyo. Tuwe na kiongozi wa walio wachache nchini, walio wengi, kanisa, vijana, kina mama, walemavu. Ikiwe ni bodi ambayo inakubaliana na kila mtu katika jamii.
Marafiki wa rais hapana, na tutaki wa huku iwe hao wamegemea huku hao wamegemea huku, tunataka wawe neutral.
Kwa hivyo IEBC kama hiyo ya Chebukati hatuitaki, kama wana Kenya hatutaki hiyo kama Chebukati.
The only thing we want is the president to implement what is in the constitution.
According to them, the move will now allow them to recall members of parliament who have failed their constituents. ODM has also vowed to recall 6 of its members who voted for the punitive tax proposals. Despite President William Ruto caving into some of the demands presented during the anti-government protests, the youth have questioned the laxity of the head of state for not dissolving his cabinet, yet he announced that changes would be made.
But as Gen Zs, we still have our own way of passing our message, and that is through agitation and occupying.
Harriet Chimea, K24.
President William Ruto yesterday prevented a protocol breach after signing the IEBC amendment bill into law to allow his deputy, Rigathi Gachagua, make his remarks. National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, who co-chaired the National Dialogue Committee, had invited the Azimio leader Raila Odinga to give his speech, who later invited the president. This continues to give a hint of a possible rift between leaders allied to the president and his deputy. And now is Majibu Kitao highlighting some of the instances when the deputy president has been seen to be sidelined.
Today's events at KICC during the signing of the IEBC Amendment Bill 2024 into law seem to have exacerbated the widening cracks in the ruling UDA party.
The former Vice President.
After assenting to the bill, National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, who co-chaired the NADCO committee, made his remarks and invited his co-chair, Kalonzo Musyoka. Soon after Kalonzo was done with his speech, Ichung'wah invited Azimio leader Raila Odinga and asked him to invite the president after his remarks.
Those many remarks, Excellency, now may I have the pleasure to invite my brother, President William Ruto, to address you. Thank you.
President William Ruto stopped a protocol breach and invited his deputy to make remarks after he was skipped.
But let me ask my deputy to make a few remarks so that I can conclude. Mr. Deputy President.
Why would the Deputy President, the second in command for that matter, be skipped in such a high-profile event? Was it deliberate? According to protocol, in official functions where the President and his deputy are present, the deputy should invite the President to make his remarks. During the onset of the Gen Z demos, the DP claimed NIS boss Nurdin Haji failed to inform the president about the magnitude of the protest in time to avert unprecedented loss of lives, remarks which were later refuted by the president.
We have a dysfunctional National Intelligence Service that has exposed the president, the government, and the people of Kenya. Had the National Intelligence Service briefed the president 2 months ago about how the people of Kenya feel about the Finance Bill 2024, so many Kenyans would not have died.
As the rift continues in Kenya Kwanza, not once, not twice has a section of leaders allied to the president accused Rigathi of propagating tribal politics.
Wakati ya ugawanya watu ilipita na wakati. Hii ni wakati ya kuunganisha watu wote. Unajua mimi nasikia watu wengine wanasema ati wanatafuta kiti inaitwa kingpin.
Every time mtu akifikiria ukabila, afikirie Nakuru na afikirie mwingine.
We must come together as a house, as a government. Because a house divided cannot stand.
Unity is bottom up. Utaanzisha na wewe na bibi yako nyumbani mkubaliane. Because kama kwako nyumbani hakuna amani, hamwezi kizana Kenya.
Rigathi has on several occasions been seen to be sidelined. Today's events have called to attention questions of whether things are as rosy as they used to be in the top leadership. Majibu Kitsao for K24 TV, Nairobi.
In a bid to address Kenya's fiscal challenges, a Kiharu Member of Parliament, Ndindi Nyoro, who also serves as the chair of the Budget Committee of the National Assembly, has announced significant adjustments to the national budget. Nyoro has outlined a strategy to reduce spending by 177 billion shillings while introducing strategic investments through loans to achieve a balanced fiscal outlook. Key among the initiatives highlighted is a commitment to agricultural support across various sectors. Notably, a substantial portion of the budget, amounting to 10 billion shillings, will be allocated for fertilizer subsidies. This financial boost, according to Nyoro, aims to not only benefit maize farmers, but also support coffee, sugarcane and tea farmers across the country.
We are cutting. Na pia tuna want to assure nikiwa hapo one, we are putting 10 billion shillings for fertilizer subsidy. Na hii fertilizer tumesema ikienda mbele sio tu ya watu wanalima mahindi, itakuwa ya wakulima wote mpaka wa kahawa, wa majani chai, wa mahindi na wa kila mtu. Fertilizer ya bei ya chini. Kitu kingine, I want to assure all our JSS interns who are still here in Wajengi, where there are also JSS interns, we will start with them. And in the budget, we must provide for their money to be confirmed on permanent and pensionable terms. Our health interns, wale wanajitolea katika hospitali zetu, hata wao hata kama tutakata pesa yetu kama viongozi, their money we must safeguard that they are also going to be confirmed at the permanent and pensionable.
The Ministry of Health has called on medical interns to call off their demonstrations dubbed Occupy Ministry of Health to give room for dialogue. This even as medics continued to camp outside the Ministry of Health headquarters at Afia House in Nairobi on day 2 of protests to pressure the government to post medical interns in line with the 2017 collective bargaining agreement. Here's David Kagina with the details.
For a second day in a row, hundreds of medical, dental and pharmacy interns descended on the Ministry of Health headquarters with a two-pronged ultimatum to the Ministry of Health: immediate posting of all interns or the resignation of the Health Cabinet Secretary. However, after an engagement with the ministry, KMPDU Secretary General had this to say.
From the engagement I was having upstairs was that it's impossible to have progress on these engagements if we are both demonstrating and sitting. So probably that's one reason I've been given. On the other side, we are being told to proceed and do the demonstrations and the vigils, because after that then we can have engagement.
A pronouncement that did not sit well with the medical interns.
How is it impossible to find 1.2 billion? Yet you knew that this is the number of interns coming out of school.
What I think of that is that is a scapegoat. That is deceitful, because the meeting was supposed to be much earlier, and we have had meetings with them at odd hours, at different times, all across this past week. So if the meeting was really to be there, it would have been there, whether it's here in this venue or elsewhere. So what we're getting from this whole thing is that Nakumincha wants to escape.
The health workers spent most of Monday picketing outside the Health Ministry headquarters at Upper Hill and to push the Ministry of Health to respond quickly to their plea.
We have nothing to lose. We have no jobs to report to. There is nowhere we are going. So it's as easy as us staying here. We can actually be reporting here daily as a painful reminder to them.
KMPDU, which is leading the negotiations, has vowed to continue pushing for the interest of the medical interns. As the standoff continues with no signs of white smoke in sight, the medical interns insist that only posting letters will make them get from the door and entrance of the Ministry of Health. For K24 from Afi House, I'm David Kagina.
Well, the Gen Z-led demonstrations continue to gain momentum, prompting concerns from senators regarding the authorities' handling of the demonstrators and demonstrations over the past 2 weeks. During the Senate proceedings yesterday, legislators highlighted corruption, a deteriorating economy, and a lack of jobs as key factors driving the demonstrations nationwide.
It is the Gen Zs and the people of Kenya who actually have raised very pertinent issues that we must listen to. One of the issues that we have that has come out very, very clearly for the last 2 weeks in the conversation that we have in the country, Honorable Speaker, is the issue of corruption.
Most of them, Mr. Speaker, if you look at their lives, Mr. Speaker, they are everything to their parents. They are the only hope that their parents have. Mr. Speaker, we might be in this house and we must be privileged to be able to get insurance. But for some of these young people, they are the insurance for their parents.
Wametuonyesha wao hawako na ufisadi, wala hawana ukabila, na hawanataka usawa. Na ikiwa sisi kama nchi tutafuata hii filosofia ya hawa Gen Z, basi bila shaka tutaleta mabadiliko katika nchi yetu.
We need to relate. I'm talking about the disconnect between the youth and the national government is really wide, Mr. Speaker.
We want to ask the National Police Service to ensure those youths who are still in the police cells get released immediately, Honorable Speaker, from the police stations, and they cease abduction.
Well, that report brings us to a break on New Dawn. When we come back, look at us making headlines on the dailies on this Wednesday, the 10th of July. Do stay with us.
The biggest reggae and rhythm show ever on Kenyan television.
You have a ganja man and you wanna forget. Tell them nothing about
Juggle with the reggae boys.
Okay, you get the new clocks, the daddy, freeze.
When we dance,